We are live, and it's been a little bit since I went live, primarily because I'm messing around with camera settings still, and actually thinking about going with a traditional. Um, I don't know what the setup is, but wherever we would end up letting me put more 4K stuff out there instead of doing things through the browser. This week, or today, for Throwback Thursday, we're going to throw back to episode 154 of the Catalyst Sale podcast. That's what it was way back then. And Keenan joined me to talk about gap selling. And a couple of the key takeaways that came up in the conversation. Number one, sales has evolved over time. It was kind of cool to hear Keenan talk about this. We went from the barking to all of a sudden, as things started to get a little bit more complicated, we talked about the solution. And then as Rackman came in with spin, we started getting more focused on the problem. And what's funny is there are still sales reps out there that focus more on barking. Organizations who think that the better play is to focus on barking. Those are usually ones who are new to sales or get so excited about the founder vision, founder story, the founder magic. And founder magic is something that's real. One of my favorite parts of gap selling was when Keenan shared the story of the work that he did relative to some software that he was going to deliver in the ski resorts, where he was going to help connect the dots between those people who are delivering training on the mountain and those people who are enjoying the training on the mountain. And it was going to get into he was going to have anyway. Well, listen to the episode and you can get into the details. But net, what ended up happening was Keenan didn't do the research. He didn't get deep into some of the challenges that existed out there. And it's been a number of years since we had the conversation, a number of years since I read gap selling. But what he found out was there was too much liability associated with having this kind of technology out there from an HR perspective. So he was never going to be able to get the product out in the market. It was a complete mess. And he spent a lot of time, energy, and resource in getting it out. Couple other things that came up in the conversation, and I think these were really cool. Keenan had 3 big questions to support qualification. Super freaking simple. Do they have the problem? Okay. Do they actually have the problem? Do they want to solve the problem? Not only do they have the problem, but do they want to solve the problem? And are they willing to go on a journey with you to fix it? I can't think of a simpler way to have that qualification discussion than those 3 questions. Do they have the problem? Do they want to solve the problem? Are they willing to go on the journey to fix it? That is a super simple approach, and reinforces why BANT sucks. Nobody wants to be banted. The last piece to take away. The buyer journey is about the organization, less about the individual. Be aware. So what does that mean? Why is the buyer journey about the organization and not about the individual? The individual is ultimately going to have to deal with a lot of challenges that end up happening inside the organization as they go through the decision-making process, unless you're dealing with somebody where it's super transactional. If it's super transactional, then this may not apply. But if you think about the person who's buying, they should either have the problem, be impacted by the problem, or care about the people who have or are impacted by the problem. If they are not in all of those 3 areas, then we've got to make sure that other people are coming along. And when those other people come along, remember, they've got a lot of bias that they bring to the table. So check out episode 154 of, it's the Find My Catalyst podcast, but back then it was the Catalyst Sale podcast. And the actual title of the episode is Asking Questions, Preparation, and Gap Selling with Keenan. And the cool thing about content like this, that's evergreen, that's focused on fundamentals, getting back to basics, doing things really, really well over and over and over again, still applies. 300 some odd or 200 some odd episodes later. So check it out, listen to it. Let Keenan know you did. Keenan, thanks for joining me a couple of years back. It might make sense to get you back on again. Maybe we figure out a way to do that. Get back to basics, ask better questions, prepare, and know about that gap between where they are today or where they want to be, the gap between the problem and the solution. If you have questions, please send them my way. I would like to convert this format into a listener question format where I answer 2 to 3 questions per day in a live format. Let me know if that's interesting. If it's interesting, I'm happy to do it. The 4 buckets that I want to focus on: leadership, anything related to leadership, no holds barred. I will share every story. If it's something I don't have any experience in, I will bring somebody else on to talk about it. Leadership, culture, revenue, execution, and the simple definitions I have around those. I put this together on a post on LinkedIn. I think it was on LinkedIn the other day. I think maybe I did this on Twitter, but leadership, how we get to where we're going. How do we get there? How do we guide? How do we direct? How do we pull along? How do we move forward? How do we get to where we're going? That's leadership, my definition. Culture, how we do what we do, how we actually do the things that we do. Revenue, it's critical. Without revenue, your organization will not exist. We've seen money dry up for those who are on the funding treadmill. Without revenue, your organization is not going to exist. So we've got to be able to generate revenue, which means we have to be able to identify what is that fair exchange of money for the ability for money for services, money for product, money for the ability to solve specific problems. So revenue, how do we generate revenue? How do we go to market? Execution, how do we get the things done that we want to get done? How do we simplify achieving results? So leadership, culture, revenue, execution. Any questions? I'm happy to go deep on those. Other things I can go deep on: barbecue, golf, and a little bit of health and fitness. If you know somebody who would enjoy this, please share it with them. Let me know via some of the social channels, whether it's here on YouTube in the chat or it's via Twitter or LinkedIn. If you have questions or want to connect with me directly, go to findmycatalyst.com. Thank you.